So I think there are different areas of our lives that we have the ability to be successful in. And there's different ideas of manifestation and taking advantage of certain areas. But understanding that at the end of the day, we need to put in the work in order to see the success that we want. And we need to start to ask ourselves, what is that work that needs to get done in order to see the success? Because we could do as much meditation as we want, we could do as much manifestation as we want, as I'm a big, big proponent of. But if we don't take the action, then nothing's going to happen. I believe it's Tony Robbins who says that you need to take massive action after you have one of these inspirational feelings, after you get that just energy to do something. Because how many of us have the direction, we have the big picture goal, but then we get so lost. And because we get so lost, we have no idea where to go. And this is what we're going to talk about today. What actions can we start to take? What are the mindset actions we need to be taking? What are the blocks we need to be getting rid of? And what practically should we be doing in order to move forward? So when it comes to the different areas, number one is let's sort of work on the mindset. Okay, because what happens is that when we are starting to be wanting to become successful, so you might be the type of person who has like a million ideas. You might be the type of person who, has just one good idea, or a type of person who is going to jump on board somebody else's good idea. But understanding that we have these perspectives, we have these visualizations or thoughts about what things should be like. But things we don't really know how to do it yet. Why? Because we've never done it before. We might see somebody else do it, but their story is going to be different than ours. Everybody has a different story. It's like people who invest in real estate and their first deal. How do they get their money? So some people, they made their own money. Some people, they had a wealthy relative. Other people found somebody at like some restaurant who said, yeah, I want to trust in you. I really like you. And everybody has their own way of going about it. So to say that you need to be doing X, Y, and Z is just not realistic because you're going to have your own story. So what story are you going to start to create for yourself? But the theme between all those different stories is that something happened, there was an opportunity that arose, and then there was an action that was taken. The action might have taken a very long time. One of the books that I wrote took me literally 10 years to write. I had the idea. I even took notes about it 10 years ago. And it just like sat nowhere because I didn't think whatever. I just wasn't ready for it. But then one day I was like, you know what, let me just start to do this. And it was a small action, and it wasn't even such a commitment to be able to write the whole book. But then once I started to do the small action, I realized, hey, if I start doing this, if I stay focused, then all of a sudden I'm going to be able to have a book at the end. And that was something that was so powerful for me because for so long I wanted to be doing something and I just couldn't get myself to do it. So what are those things? What are those visions? What is that 3, 5, 10, 15, 20-year goal of yours that you want to be doing? Understanding that if you get clarity, then you can start to see what opportunities you have. Because one of the beautiful things about manifestation, and manifestation, if you're not familiar, is the idea of like thinking about yourself, thinking about a future version of yourself. It's maybe experiencing certain things, having certain things, maybe it's emotionally feeling a certain way, and just allowing yourself to do that in order to be able to have the opportunity show up in front of you. Because my belief, and I believe the belief of a lot of these personal development, gurus who are not just gurus, but they're literally living the life, is that we all have opportunities around us all the time, but we're just so closed-minded, and I'll prove it to you. So if you're somebody who's ever been in the market to buy a car, so you're looking for different cars. I know when we bought our car, we bought a Nissan Rogue. And when we bought a Rogue, I didn't realize how many Rogues were on the road. And every time we were driving, we saw a million of them. And like, oh, there's one, and there's one, and there's one. There's different sizes. That was a little bigger. That was a little small. That one's a sports one. And what was interesting is that, why didn't I notice that before? Like, were they not there? And the answer is like, no, they were there. But what was not there was my perspective. I wasn't focused on it. And what we have to recognize is that if we can start to realize what is it that we need to be doing, how it is that we have to make certain things happen, so then all of a sudden we're going to be able to open up our perspective just a little bit to allow ourselves to bring that into us. And that is something that is so powerful that so many people don't realize. They're so closed-minded, they're so distracted, whether it's with things that they're prioritizing in their life that are really important to them, or whether it's things that they're just distracting themselves because they're in a bad routine. But what we need to understand is that we have the opportunity to open our perspective just a little bit. And if we can start opening up our perspective, then all of a sudden we're going to be able to see different areas of our life opening up for us. So this idea of manifestation is really this idea of just opening up these opportunities. Because when you do get an opportunity, you want to be able to pounce on it. You want to be able to jump on it. But if we don't even get the opportunity, not because we don't get it, but more because we don't see the opportunity, then all of a sudden it's not going to happen. So focusing on that future is going to be something that is going to be crucial. The next part that we need to be really working on is our mindset. And a lot of it has to do with our own expectation. Because what happens is that when we are trying to do certain things in our life, we have certain expectations of how things should go. We have certain expectations, whether it's because we've read a book and they said X, Y, and Z, or maybe it's because we just grew up thinking X, Y, and Z should be happening. But what we have to realize is that we don't really know what difficult is going to be like. The process might be very similar, but is it going to be 100% the same? And the answer is probably not. It's like you could go to school for accounting, but depending on which school you go to, you're going to have different teachers. You're going to have a different experience. And guess what? That's totally fine. And even the students within the same course, within the same class, within the same school, they might have a very different experience because they have their own personal things going on in their own personal lives. So recognizing that is something that is going to be so key, because if you have this expectation that everything is going to be straight and everything is going to just flow so smoothly, you are just fooling yourself. And what happens when we fool ourselves is that we end up getting frustrated. When we end up getting frustrated, we end up getting down. When we get down, we don't allow ourselves to move forward. So recognizing that is something that is so key when it comes to our own growth, when it comes to the things that we want to be accomplishing. How are we going to set up the proper expectations? How are we going to understand that we don't even know what difficult means, and yet we're still going to take it? I heard that line first from Alex Hormozy, and it was like amazing. It was like, oh my gosh, he's so right. And I remember when I was got into entrepreneurship, like that's what it was. I had a certain expectation of how things would work. Not just how things were, but I had a certain expectation about myself, the skills that I had. I thought I was good at X, Y, and Z. And then once I started getting going, I'm like, oh my gosh, I am so not good. I need to really work on myself. And that is what we're trying to do over here, is we're trying to build ourselves up, to allow ourselves to see the success that we want, to take the action in order to become a master at whatever it is that we want to be doing. And I think for so many people, they think they're just going to be a master after like a year or two. And if you could just play a little bit of the long game, to tell yourself, you know what, I'm going to take a step back. I'm going to be a little bit more patient with this because it's not as easy as I thought. Then all of a sudden, then we have the ability to move forward. And for so many of us, we want it right now. We want to be able to take that hit. And if we can start to say to ourselves, hey, you know what? I'm going to slow down a little bit. I'm going to set myself up in a proper way. I'm going to be able to do things in my own personal life that are going to allow me to see the success in 3, 5, 7, 10 years from now. And then all of a sudden, that's a different perspective. It's a different shift in terms of what it is that we're doing. Because for so many of us, we're so stuck, and we just want it so badly right now that we're looking to cut corners. And what happens when we cut corners is we end up burning ourselves. I have a friend who was in real estate, and he ended up doing a lot of work in terms of flipping houses and like working with the city and whatnot. And he said every time that he cut corners, every time that he didn't get a permit that he was supposed to get a permit, he ended up getting caught, and he ended up just slowing down the process. And even if it was like that 2 or 3 times that he didn't get caught, the one time that he did get caught, it was not worth it. He said I probably should have just paid that extra couple $100 because it ended up just being so much worse than I was. And for so many of us, we get so stuck and we try to make these shortcuts, and we have to realize that no, it is what we have to do. And recognizing that the skills are the thing that's important, and it's not the result, it's the skills. Because if somebody gives you an apartment building, let's say, if you're in like real estate, I'm focusing on real estate these days, right? So if somebody gives you like an apartment building to own, so that's great. You have like this $30 million property that now you own. But let's say you're somebody who actually worked their tail off, and then all of a sudden they end up becoming somebody who owns this property. They end up owning $30 million worth of real estate. So can you really compare the two people? One person inherited it and one person actually worked for it. Now, what happens when there's a crash? Who do you think is going to be more likely to keep it or to be able to do it again if they lose everything? And the answer is the person who really worked hard for it. And what we need to do is we need to try to see for ourselves, what is it that we're doing? How is it that we're going to see the success that we want? Because if we don't see the success that we want, then all of a sudden what's going to happen is that we're going to be not learning the skills that we need. And if you try to cut the corners, you're not going to be able to build the systems and the processes that you're going to need. And it's better to go slow and allow ourselves to become the person that we want. And the asset that we're building is ourselves, is the person, as opposed to the thing that we're getting. And it took me so long to realize that, because I myself was somebody who was constantly focusing on saying, what's the way around it? What's the way that I could just like skip this? I remember even like with my English classes, I'm not a good writer. Ironically, apparently you don't have to be a good writer to write a book, right? But I'm not a good writer. And it's one of the things that I know when I was in college, like I tried to do everything I could to get out of writing. And there's even one semester that I was able to like finagle my way around it. And it was something that it was like, why don't you just sit down, learn the basic skills and like learn how to do it? It's like get one tutor for like 2 months. And then all of a sudden like you'll be a better writer. You don't have to be scared about writing papers, especially when you're in college and you're writing papers all the time. But for some reason, I wasn't able to do it. I was so scared to do it. And for so many of us, we get so scared and we're not able to become and learn what it is that we need to be doing. The question is like, how do we take the action? Because that's the scariest part. So we're doing the manifestation piece, or we're looking at our goals, and we see the opportunities in front of us. We're working on the mindset to say, hey, you know what? I know this is going to be tough. I know this is going to be something that I want to move forward with. But how do we do it? How do we take that step? So different areas. Number one, recognizing that you're not supposed to be comfortable. That's the expectation shift that we need to have. You think you're supposed to be feeling 100%. You think you're supposed to be on cloud nine when you take that action. That when you take that action, you're going to feel not stressed or not scared or having that fear of failure. And the truth is, like, it's not going to happen. Like, that fear of failure, that emotion that you have inside that's holding you back, is the thing that's helping you grow. Is the workout in the gym that's making you become somebody. So when we can start to reframe that feeling, it's not about, oh, I need to be calm in order to take this action. It's no, I need to take this action because that action is what's gonna make me calm. And we need to flip that switch around because there's so many people, they're so stuck in terms of what it is that they're doing. And what we need to do is we need to make that shift and allow ourselves to move forward with this. And for so many people, they can't do it. Rightfully so, because it's so scary. It is so scary. But what we need to do is we need to try to see to ourselves, okay, how is it that I could do it? How is it that I could take that step? So number one is having an expectation shift of saying, no, it's taking action in spite of the discomfort. It's taking the action. It's building the courage. It's being bold enough to say, you know what? I'm going to not think this for 30 seconds and I'm just going to move. It's like whenever you go like on a roller coaster or you're going down like a water slide or something like that. It's like one of those ones that you're going down by yourself. It's like you can't like think when you go on. You just gotta like go and do it. And like that's what you have to do in these cases also. So you have these opportunities of things that are happening. What is it that we can start to do in order to move forward to allow ourselves to see that success? The second thing is we need to break our steps up into smaller bites. If you are too nervous, overly nervous, and you understand you need to take the action, take a smaller step. There's so many people, they're trying to take too big of a leap. And this goes back to the idea they're trying to cut corners. And the answer is like, don't. Just don't cut the corners. Understand what it is that you need to be doing. Allow yourself to see what it is that you need to be doing in order to see the success that you want. And what we need to do is we need to be able to break it down into smaller steps. And the last part is to get somebody to hold you accountable. See, a lot of times, I know for me personally, that if I want to do something for myself, it's a lot harder as to say, you know what, I'm going to do this for my kid or my wife or for somebody else that I'm really working out for. And if we can start to see that and say, hey, you know what, it's not about me, it's about somebody else. Or it's, you know what, this person who's like on my back right now wants the best for me and they know what it is I need to be doing. And that is one shift that has been such a huge game changer for me because the things that I've been wanting to do in my own personal life, I've realized that if I want to take it to the next level, I have to start to see that success. I have to be able to move forward and to do all the things that I want to be doing. But I need those people around me, that support team of people that I know, even if I mess up or even when I mess up, that things are going to be fine. They're going to still care about me. They're going to still want the best for me. And that being said, that could be such a huge game changer that so many people don't have. And what's interesting is that the most successful people have those. The most successful people know that they need that accountability. They need that support squad around them telling them, hey, you know what? These are the things that you need to be doing in order to move forward. That even when you mess up, we're not going to look at it as a mess up. We're just going to look at it as feedback and how can we tweak it to get better the next time. So for so many of us, what is it that we're going to be doing? How is it that we can just start to break it down into smaller steps? What are the fears that come up? What's that emotion that comes up? And recognize that, you know what, we have the ability to move forward. And you might be the person who says, Ben, I get so much anxiety around it. I've been trying to do this for years. But guess what? The way anxiety works is that the more anxious we get, the bigger this monster gets, the bigger the monster on our shoulder gets, the anxiety monster, I like to call it. And guess what? For years, you've been building up this anxiety monster. So it's really, really big. But what we need to do is we need to stop feeding it. So every time you get anxious, what we have to do is something called scratching the CD. If you have not heard of that, I have a bunch of episodes on scratching the CD. But making sure that if you can start to say, hey, you know what, I'm not going to think about this. I'm going to cut off that story that I've been telling myself. Show myself that, you know what, this story that is built up in my head is just a story. It's not realistic, doesn't actually have to happen. Then all of a sudden we have the ability to move forward. And for so many of us, it could be the thing that could shift everything for us. It could be the thing that could change our lives, because so many of us have things we want to be doing, but we feel that anxiety, we feel that pressure. And because of that pressure, we don't allow ourselves to move forward. So ask yourself, what is that one thing you want to be doing? How can we break it into smaller steps? And in spite of the discomfort, how is it that we can move forward and take that action? Let me know if you have any questions. I'll see you on the next one. Peace out.